Welcome, believers. Welcome, conspiracy theorists. Welcome to the wonderfully weird world of UFO aliens and weird stuff. Now, if there's one thing social media is good for, it's meeting like-minded people. Now, there is a group on Facebook called Insight UFOology, and I've followed them, right? And this is where I first heard this story. Now, it's called the Forest Incident, after the witness Brett Forrest. So I've done a bit of checking, and I found a BBC website with the same story. All right, so I like to collaborate stuff. So it all starts on the evening of 19th of November 1987, under an ordinary sky above Brierley Hill in the West Midlands. Right, and the West Midlands is there, if you can see it. Okay. Now Brett Forrest, then 27, later recalled walking home along Mall Street when a cluster of flashing lights gathered above the Royal Brierley Gasworks. Okay, a chimney, I think, right? Now, suddenly, more lights started to appear and flew around the first two. They all formed into a diamond like formation, he told a local paper. A moment that left him transfixed, he says. Now, witnesses described a large hovering object, close enough to be seen at chimney height, its lights behaving unlike any aircraft they recognised. Now, the sketchy repeated reports from Brierley Hill witnesses were placed into a national UFO report for 1987, and for many in the Midlands, the episode has since been called the Forest Incident, right? Now, what makes the sightings interesting today is not only how fast the reports came in, but the shape of the UFO. It was a triangular or diamond configuration of lights. Now, the 1980s and the early 1990s saw a rise in reports of so-called black triangle crafts. They're silent, low-flying triangular objects with lights at each corner. Most famously during the Belgian wave of 1989 and 1990. So the reason it became interesting is it was because this was 1987. He saw this triangular shaped craft. And then in 1989, we had the Belgian wave, where hundreds of people saw it. So was it a pretense to that, do you think? We call them TR3Bs, don't we, right? So the eyewitness, Brett and Barbara Forrest, talk about an encounter with a strange craft in the sky that changed their lives forever. And Barbara is his mum, right? Now, it was a cool autumn night on the evening of Thursday the 19th November 1987. Now, approximately 7 p.m, 27-year-old Brett Forrest was strolling west down Moore Street in Brierley Hill, a winding residential road that crosses over a railway track, and it's roughly a quarter of a mile from the town centre. Now, he's picked up a few things for his mum from a local shop and could see the window of a ground floor flat about 400 yards down the road on the right. So he wasn't far. Now, he says it was a clear sky, remembers Brett, still fairly light from the time of day. There was no traffic at all. The only thing I could hear, he says, was the sounds of dogs barking. And he says, looking back, both of those were really unusual. As the road sloped upwards to become a small bridge, Brett glanced off to his left. Now that is the site of the old Brierley crystal stack. It was here that he saw something unusual in the sky. And I will try and put a picture of the Brierley crystal stack, because I would imagine it's a chimney, right? So it was then he saw something unusual in the sky. Now, there were two white lights. One was larger than the other, with a gap in between. They were both stationary and directly above the old stack tower. Now, suddenly, more lights started to appear, and they flew around the first two. Now, they all formed into a diamond-like formation at this point, and he says, I just stopped dead. I was transfixed. And you would be, wouldn't you, right? Now, the lights started to dim, and I saw that a huge triangle-shaped object had formed. It was enormous. Now, I could hear a drone-like buzzing sound coming from it. I carried on walking until I was underneath a street lamp. Right, so he's positioned himself, let's say, right? Now, the object actually turned about on its own axis, so the tip of the triangle faced directly towards me. He said it was coming at me, albeit in a step-like manner, getting lower and lower as it drew nearer. Now, he said it stopped directly above me, about 40 feet above the streetlight under which I was standing. So, looking up, I could see that the craft had a groove-like structure on its underside, coloured black, silver and bronze. It was a perfect triangle. I wouldn't say I was scared or had any fear. It was more like wonderment. No, I'd be scared. I'd be scared stiff, I would, right? Now, I couldn't see how big it was, but being directly underneath it blocked out all the sky. And he carries on saying, I've seen aircraft carriers up close, and it was that sort of size. So, Brett realised he was now close to his mother's flat. Leaving the road, he ran down the small bank that ran parallel and frantically knocked on the window. So this is where his mum comes into it, right? Barbara Forrest was in the living room at the time. Seeing her son clearly distressed through the glass, she dashed to the end of the room and flung open the window. He says, Mum, look, insisted Brett. Margaret's jaw dropped as they looked to see this huge object hovering over the roof of her building. So Brett's father, Martin, came to the window too, and he was equally amazed. So there's 3 witnesses now. So, as all 3 looked on, the object again rotated on its axis and quietly flew off towards the town centre. The family would later learn that their upstairs neighbour had witnessed the entire event through her window, has had numerous other local residents. So this is a mass sighting incident. Now, the incident had a long-lasting impact on the Forrest family. Brett's father will simply not talk about it even to this day. It affected me badly for a long time, says Barbara. I honestly don't know who to talk to. I was terrified of ridicule. I know what I saw, and it's the whole truth. She says I still get scared sometimes just thinking about it, but it's easier as time goes on. So she continues, I just couldn't get the incident out my head. So the author, UFO investigator Timothy Good, helped me a lot, she says. I contacted him and we talked. He showed me case files from other sightings, and it was then that I learned I wasn't alone. Now, Mr. Good, considered one of the UK's leading experts on the UFO phenomena, has no doubt over the authenticity of this case. He says, I find the witnesses compelling and completely honest, he says. They haven't changed their story in 20 years. What's funny, he says, is their description of the underside of the craft are completely consistent with the types being seen at the time, but the detail is such that they simply wouldn't have known about unless they'd seen what they claim. Now, that is a cool story, isn't it? And I would like to say thank you to Sarah Evangelista, if I pronounced your name right. That is really much appreciated. So, I've stuck it on the map. There it is. All right, so that is the Forrest incident near Birmingham. Right, okay, let's carry on then. So the next story is a famous one, and it will go nicely on the map, right? It's called the Livingston Dechmont Woods incident and a criminal investigation of a UFO, what I find fascinating, right? Now, this is a really rare story, and it's up in Falkirk, right? Now, I get most of my information from a website called UFO Insight. Check it out. It's really informative and cool. A website made by UFO nuts like me. It's really good, right? So this incident happened in the Falkirk Triangle. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, right? The Falkirk Triangle, located in central Scotland, is renowned for its high frequency of UFO sightings, making it one of the world's most active area for unidentified flying objects. Now, the Falkirk Triangle encompasses the regions of Bonnybridge, Falkirk and Stirling. Now, since the early 1990s, the area has reported thousands of UFO sightings, with witnesses describing a variety of phenomena, right? Including strange lights, triangular-shaped crafts, and even encounters with humanoid figures. Now, I'm going to get a map of the area. There are so many sightings that I'm going to have to use a different map because my one's too short. So what we'll do, we'll get a map of the Falkirk area, we'll stick it on the wall, and we'll start concentrating on it, right? But this story is from Livingston, right? And it's right in the triangle. So when forestry worker Robert Taylor reported seeing an alien spaceship in woods near Livingston 40 years ago. It made headlines around the world. Now, the Dechmont Woods incident is unusual among reported UFO sightings in that it was investigated by the police. Now, they treated the rips to Mr. Taylor's trousers as evidence of an assault, but could never quite work out what had happened to him. And I'll get that, it's a weird one, right? In his testimony to the police, the 61-year-old described how he saw a 30-foot high dome-shaped object in a clearing in the forest near the West Lothian New Town on the 9th of November 1979. Right, so he's strolling through the woods and he's seen this dome-shaped UFO. Now, he told how two spiked spheres then rolled out towards him. As he passed out, he was aware of being grabbed on either side of his legs. So Mr. Taylor woke up in a dishevelled state 20 minutes later. So what he's done, he's seen this UFO, hasn't he? Right, he stumbled across it in a clearing. Two weird spheres have come out with spikes, and they've basically attacked him. Right, he's then passed out. So they have attached themselves to his legs. Now, Mr. Taylor, who sadly died in 2007, was a respected war hero and a teetotal churchgoer. No one doubted that he was sincere in what he believed he had seen throughout the rest of his life. He never deviated from his story. And that's a good character witness, isn't it, right? He told police he had been working alone, checking fences and gates at Dechmont Woods at roughly about 10:30 when he came across the spaceship in a clearing. So after the spiky object rushed out and tried to grab hold of him, all he could remember was a strong smell of burning. Now, when he came to, because obviously he passed out, the clearing was empty, apart from a pattern of deep, regular marks on the ground. Now, he went to his van, but was so shaken he drove it into a ditch and had to stagger home in a dazed condition. So what he's done, he's obviously come to, got in his van, too shaky, wasn't concentrating, drove it in a ditch. Now, when he got to his house, he told his wife Mary he had been attacked by a spaceship thing. Now, because Mr. Taylor was in such a state, the police were called and officers found themselves inquiring into an assault on a forester by alien beings. And this is where a detective Constable Ian Wark comes onto the scene, right? So Detective Constable Ian Wark, the scene of crime investigator, arrived at the clearing to find a large gathering of police officers were already there. So he told the BBC he saw strange marks on the ground. There were about 32 holes, which were about 3.5 inches in diameter, as well as marks similar to those made by the type of caterpillar tracks often fitted on bulldozers, right? Now, the officer went to Mr. Taylor's employer, a Livingston Development Corporation, to see if the machinery that they had could solve the mystery. Now, after examining every piece of machinery that they had there, the police did not find anything to match. So it couldn't have been a piece of machinery that his boss owned, right? Now, the police officer said that the unusual marks on the ground were only to be found in the clearing where Mr. Taylor had experienced his reported close encounter. Yes, important, right? These marks just arrived, he said. Now, Detective Constable Work said they did not come from anywhere or go anywhere. They just arrived, as though a helicopter or something had landed from the sky. So what he's basically saying, whatever it was, had landed. It didn't get that way, didn't get that way. There was only tracks in that particular area. And I know at the time that the soil was extremely wet. Whatever, if you had arrived there, you would be able to follow the tracks. So the police report from the Times said the marks on the ground indicated an object of several tons had stood there, but there was nothing to show that it had been driven or towed away. So PC William Douglas wrote, there appeared to be no rational explanation for these marks. Basically, how did the marks get there if they hadn't landed? Now, as part of the police investigation, Mr. Taylor's ripped trousers were sent for forensic examination. But this was many years before modern DNA techniques. So analysis concentrated on how the damage had been done and not by who had done it, right? Now, police forensics said the trousers seemed to have been damaged by something hooking them and moving up, right? So that's important, right? The trousers are now in the possession of a bloke called Malcolm Robinson, a UFOologist, who has been investigating such cases since the Dechmont incident, right? He said that they were police-issue blue serge trousers, and the type of rips in them did not happen by getting snagged on branches. So that's really important. Or as Mr. Taylor crawled away on the ground. So these were police-issue serge trousers. They're obviously tough. They don't get ripped in that manner. So whatever ripped them, hooked and then pulled. So Mr. Robinson, who has been given lectures on the incident across the UK, Holland, France and the USA, and written a book on the subject, says it was one of the most incredible cases in the world. Right? He said it was one of the very few hardcore cases that defied any explanation. And you've got to remember, he's a teetotal churchgoer as well, right? He's got a great character. Now, there are many theories about what actually happened to Mr. Taylor. These include anything from hallucinatory berries, to ball lightning, and a mirage of the planet Venus. A mirage of the planet Venus. I mean, it staggers me what they come up with. I was surprised they didn't say it was swamp gas. Now, a medical explanation could lie in an epileptic seizure being suffered by Mr. Taylor. But there was no evidence of this gathered at the time, and there was no history. His family had no history of epileptic seizures. He never had one before, and he wouldn't have recovered quick enough if it was, right? Now, in a police statement, his wife Mary said that Mr. Taylor had no history of mental illness, but had contracted meningitis 14 years ago. And I don't see how that's relevant, right? Mr. Taylor continued to stick to his story throughout his life. In his statement, Mr. Taylor said that after the UFO incident, he was examined by the local doctor who called at his house. Now, the doctor suggested he should go to a nearby hospital for a checkup and an x-ray. And I get this, right? But after waiting for 2 hours at the hospital, he just got fed up and left without being examined because he felt fine, right? Detective Constable Wark said he would go along with the theory about the epileptic fit. But what about the marks on the ground, he said. He said, all right, he might have had an epileptic fit. It looks doubtful, but that doesn't explain the marks, right? The former police officer cannot and will not bring himself to say he believes Mr. Taylor saw an alien spaceship. He said, I'd have to see it for myself to believe it, he said. But he said in interviews that Mr. Taylor 3 times, and he said he interviewed Mr. Taylor 3 times and he never changed his story, not once. He believed what he saw and there was no way he could make that up, Detective Constable Wark said. So 40 years on, the Dechmont incident has passed into legend. It is a really famous one. And it's a perfect one for the map, isn't it? Right, last year a UFO trial opened, which takes people to the spot where a new forestry foreman claims he saw an alien spaceship. You can actually go there if you want, and I will go there one day. It's just money, isn't it? Right. So other sightings in the Dechmont region around the same time. Right, it's important that we cover these. So in the book UFO Scotland, The Secret History of Scotland's UFO Phenomena, and I'm going to buy that, right? It's written by Ron Holiday, and I'll put it there, right? Ron Holiday relays several other UFO incidents that took place around the same time as Robert Taylor's encounter. So it kind of clarifies it a little bit, at least gives it a little bit of strength, right? Now, according to one such account told to Holiday in his book, at around 8 p.m. the night before Taylor's incident on the 8th of November, and Mr. Ferguson was bringing his lorry to a stop by a lay-by when he saw a strip of brilliant lights, which was shaped like a ruler, and it was heading in the direction of the Dechmont law region. Now, at the same time, 2 brothers, Stephen and Alan Little, witnessed a spherical dome-shaped object in their region of Livingston. Now, the 2 brothers viewed the object from their home and estimated the craft was around 1,200 feet from them, seemingly hovering around 150 feet above a nearby road. And that is the same shape, isn't it, right? They would further recall that the white, red and blue lights ran around the outside of the vehicle. The strange craft remained in view for several minutes before it slowly faded from sight, all the while remaining completely silent. All right, now several hours earlier, at a little past 6 p.m, a Josephine Quigley, along with her four friends, witnessed a circle of lights that was slowly rotating over the Livingston area. Now, although she couldn't make out the intricate details, she did note that it moved too slowly to be a helicopter or an aeroplane. So look, there's a few, isn't there? The following day, another one, right? The same day as Taylor ran into his strange, we'll call it UFO in the woods, strange lights and objects continued to be witnessed by members of the public in and around the Livingston area. Now, sightings on the morning of the Robert Taylor incident during the morning rush hour. A Graham Kennedy was headed west on the A89 road when his attention was captured by an extremely bright light passing overhead as he drove to the hospital. Even more alarming, the object appeared to head towards his vehicle at great speed, only changing direction at the last minute. Well, look, there's loads of them out there, isn't there? So what do you think of this story? All right, the Dechmont incident. Now, I'm going to say I believe it. Of course I do. All right. I don't think he had an epileptic fit. I don't. I'm not buying that in any way whatsoever. It certainly wasn't swamp gas, and it certainly wasn't Venus. So there you have it. Right, so this was UFOs, aliens and weird stuff. I appreciate you sticking around. Follow my journey on the map. Like, subscribe and ding that notification bell if you can. And I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you very much.